Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Thanks so much for stopping in for another episode. It's our first episode, 2026, where we took a little time off, just kind of enjoyed the holidays, needed a little break, but we're back. We're excited about 2026, so let's get into it. This first episode for this year is going to be on bourbon. You know, bourbon's a beverage, a spirit that I really enjoy. And quite honestly, haven't done a lot of shows in the last couple of years. Just kind of got a little bit of bourbon fatigue with the, the world of the bourbon, with all the hype and the chasing and trying to find great bourbons and the difficulty in doing so. It just kind of got a little burnout, if I'm being honest with you. Now, not drinking it. I drink it, all the time. It's my preferred bourbon is my preferred pour when I'm prepping and cooking and getting ready to, make a meal in the kitchen. Love a good pour of bourbon, cook that meal, have a little wine. That's kind of my routine. But I thought kicking the year off this year, I thought I'd do an episode where we talked about my top 10 bourbons that are on the shelf all the time that you should be drinking. And I wanted to do this episode because, like I said, I think there's been a bit of bourbon fatigue. People have gotten a little tired, a little frustrated with trying to find, bottles that they thought were good bottles. And I get that. But I think at the same time, we're overlooking some great bottles that are on the shelf all the time that hit in a variety of lanes that you want to hit in with your bourbon. And so I thought I'd give you guys today on this podcast my top 10 bottles. I think I got 10. Let's see here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Actually, I got 12. You're lucky. Now, bonus bottles, right? We'll call it that. Now, I will say, some of these offerings are from the same distillery. And because some of these distilleries have a great portfolio, they just have some great products. And I think they're worth mentioning. So that's what we're going to do today. I also want to say, you're going to see me sticking to the legacy distilleries. I'm not going to be off on these kind of rabbit hole places. I'm really big about quality to price ratio. And I think where you get your biggest bang for your buck in the world of bourbon is with those legacy distilleries. So that's kind of where I live. And that's what I'm going to share with you today, my top 10. So let's start. Well, and let me also say, we're going to make a bigger focus this year on the video podcast. Been doing the podcast for 6 years. And for most of that time, here and there, we've had an episode that's been on YouTube with video, but most of them have been audio only. This year, we're making the effort. We're going to make a big push in trying to record most of our episodes this year in a video format that will also be on our YouTube channel. So if you want to have a little visual to, the podcast, you can go check us out on YouTube. And by the way, on the YouTube channel, we're doing all kinds of cooking and wine blinds and other reviews of wines and spirits as just episodes, not the podcast. So those will be there as well. So if you haven't already, please go like the channel, subscribe to the channel, and check it out. See what we're doing. Give me a little feedback if you would. All right, let's dive into our list. I'm going to start in a category of wheated bourbons, and I don't think there's a lot on the market in the world of wheated bourbons. I'm going to give you two that I think are, I'm going to give you one that's a staple. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite bourbons, not just wheated bourbons. It's a fabulous wheated bourbon, but it's also an outstanding bourbon in its own right. And that's going to be from Maker's Mark, the Maker's Mark Cask Strength. Love this bourbon. This particular one I have is batch 2404. It's 111.5 proof on this. And it is just absolutely delicious. It's, at this proof, it's in this proof point that I absolutely like. It's not overpowering with the alcohol. It's got this sweetness to it. It's got this softness to it, with that wheat in there. Just a beautiful drinker, always on the shelf. You can find it for about, depending on what market you're in, I'd say between $35 to $45, somewhere in that range. Here in the Houston area, I find this regularly for about $36 to $38, and it's just a great buy. I will tell you, they've done something cool. All these distilleries are trying to do new things that are kind of creating a little bit more hype within the bourbon space. And what Maker's Mark has done, age statements have become a thing again. A lot of bottlings are starting to put the age statement back on there. So on this particular offering, the new releases are, all the ones I've seen are 7 years, 2 months, but you're going to get that age statement on here. So it'll be interesting to see, kind of with a little bit more time, what are the different ages that we get? Because I've always understood about 7 years was the sweet spot for almost all of the Maker's Mark bourbon. So it'll be curious to me to see if there's anything that comes out that's, more than 7 years, because that seems to be their sweet spot. I don't think we'll see it, but I'll keep an eye out for it, and I'll keep looking to see if we do. So wheated bourbon, Maker's Mark. I don't think there's enough wheated offerings in the market. Now, some people might go, well, there's larceny. Not a huge fan of larceny. Typically, that's barrel proof and just not my jam. So I don't usually have that. I will tell you, we recently did an episode on the YouTube channel, and this is supposed to be a standard shelf offering. This is from Heaven Hill. This is from their Old Fitzgerald lineup. This is going to be a 7-year bottled in bond, obviously bottled in bond, 100 proof. Beautiful bottle. I mean, just gorgeous. This, and I'm mentioning it because, like I said, they are saying this is going to be a standard shelf item. I will tell you, here in Texas, I'm seeing it all over the place. It's still on the shelf. Everywhere I go, not everywhere, at a lot of places that I pop into, I see this on the shelf. It's right around $50, $51, $52 is what I'm seeing it for. If this becomes a standard shelf item, well, it is. When it's sitting on the shelf and it's readily available to everybody, I think this is a great addition to that wheated category of bourbons, because I just don't think there's enough of them. So we did a little show on this. Absolutely delicious bourbon. Really enjoyed this. And at the $50 mark for a 7-year, thought it was great. So if this gets added to, being able to be found all the time, I mean, that's just a win for me and you. That's just going to be outstanding. So that's it for my wheated bourbons. Now, I will let you know on this particular episode, I'm not doing any ryes in any of my favorites. These are all bourbons. I'm going to put together a podcast episode that's going to highlight all of the ryes that I absolutely love. That might not be quite as big a list. I think it'll be 5 to 7 that I think are just outstanding and that you can find on a regular basis. So that'll be coming soon. All right, moving on. So that's 2. We've got our Old Fitzgerald bottled in bond. We've got our Maker's Mark cask strength. Both of these outstanding. Let's move on to Four Roses. I think Four Roses is, they don't have a huge portfolio. If you think about kind of their standard shelf items, they've got, let's just mention my favorite from them, which is this small batch select. This is an outstanding bourbon. It's 104 proof. It blends, and I can't tell you, I needed to look it up. I probably should have done that. I'll put it on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. It blends 6 different recipes from their portfolio of 10 recipes. And if you didn't know, that's kind of the cool thing or the unique thing from Four Roses, is that they have 10 different recipes that they use to make this offering to others. But they also then will, when you do a private barrel pick, they roll out different recipes. Now, not always all 10, but I think they try to accommodate and get you all 10 if they can. And that's really, really cool. And I won't go over, all the different things. And well, maybe I will. So they have 2 different mash bills. One is what they call a high rye, 35% rye with a 65% corn recipe. And then they have a 25% with a 60%. May have that backwards. Let's just say it this way. One is a high rye at 35% rye in the mash bill. One's a low rye at 20% in the mash bill. And these are those 2 different recipes. Now they have 5 yeast strains. So depending on which mash bill they're using with what yeast strain is how you get the different recipes. So in the world of, let's just start with the low rye. the 20%. You have OESO, OESK, E being the indicator of the lower rye. Boy, this is going to sound confusing, I know, but hopefully it kind of triggers something with you to go check out, and explore, dive a little deeper into Four Roses, because it really is a very cool distillery. So let's start again. E is your low rye recipe, that 20% rye. So we've got OESO, OESK, OESV, OESQ, and OESF. Okay, that's your 5 recipes there. Then when we jump to your high rye, which is that 35% rye in the mash bill, now we have OBSO, OBSV, OBSK, OBSF, and OBSQ. Those 2 different mash bills with those yeast strains blending gives us those 10 recipes. Very, very cool from Four Roses. There's a rumor that they're getting ready to release some more yeast strains and maybe another mash bill, so they could see some other variations in these recipes. But right now, I mean, that's 10. That's a lot. So small batch select, it's about, here in this market, I actually picked this bottle up. You can see it's brand new, $40. It's 104 proof, and it's just a delicious bourbon. It's a standard for me to have on the bar. It's one that when folks come over for a visit and they've never had it, it's one that I pour for them pretty quickly. I say, if you haven't had it, you need to try it, because it's just that good. I think a lot of people overlook small batch select. And when you talk about their lineup, they've got pretty much 4 bottles. It's just recently changed, and I'm going to get into that in just a second, but 4 bottles that are on the shelf all the time. We've got our small batch select. Then we go a step down, and we got just small batch, which is about 28 to $30, depending on where you get it. And then below that, you have the 80 proof yellow label. And then you have the single barrel, which is always OBSV and always at 100 proof. It's not bottled in bond, but it's always at 100 proof. So that's their 4 standard offerings that are on the shelf all the time. And when you heard me say the single barrel, the recipe, OBSV, so it's the high rye, and it's always OBSV until recently. And this is what I think is very cool about Four Roses, because I know a lot of people in bourbon. I've got buddies that live in Missouri that aren't into Four Roses because they think it's very limited on the shelf. And they're in a smaller kind of rural area, and they don't have, access to, or not getting opportunities to buy a lot of the barrel picks. And when you don't get to see all these other profiles of these recipes, you kind of lose a little interest. And I totally get that. So what Four Roses did is they brought this year, or actually last year, we're in 2026. In 2025, they went ahead and decided to release a couple of the other recipes, single barrels, also down to 100 proof. But you can see on the neck tag here, if you're watching on YouTube, they're going to give you this neck tag up at the top that's going to tell you what recipe this is. So this particular one we're looking at right now is OESK. So I know it's the K is going to be what yeast strain it is. The E tells me it's the low rye. And so I know I'm getting a lower rye with that K yeast strain, and I'm going to get a particular profile from that. May need to come back and just do another show. We've done one before, but maybe an updated episode on Four Roses, all the recipes and the complexity of understanding, kind of what you're getting in the bottle when you go shop with them. But this offering, very, very cool. And I can tell you absolutely, this is a standard shelf item. I see it everywhere now. It's a single barrel, 100 proof, great proof point for a lot of people, not watered down so much that you lose some of that flavor, not so hot that it's kind of off-putting for people who don't have kind of an experienced palate to, enjoy the flavors of bourbon with a little bit of proof on it. So I think this hits in a lot of ways. But what's cool about it is the OESK and the OESF were the first 2 released. At the end of 2025, they put out the OBSK and the OBSF, the other sister to this recipe. And over the course, I'm not sure, a couple of years, they're going to release all of these in a single barrel format. So all of these will be on the shelf as a standard shelf item for everybody. I just think that's very smart of Four Roses to do. It's really going to, if nothing else, get people who aren't as familiar to ask the question, why am I seeing so many of these, and what do these letters mean up the top? And it clearly says recipe, and then on the neck tag, and then it says OESK. So that's great. It's going to make people at least ask the question. Bourbon drinkers will be curious, and they'll ask, and once they start understanding that there's 10 different recipes, I think it's going to get people to, want to start exploring more. And this particular one, you're supposed to get, on this OESK, some baking spice, some mellow oak, some tea leaves, some caramel. So it's going to give you on the back a little description of what the tasting profile should be. So again, awesome for Four Roses. I think they're one of my favorite distilleries. One of the biggest reasons why is because of the single barrel program, because I've probably got, if I turn the camera around, you'd see shelves of different, I'm looking at Spankies, I'm looking at CD Liquor, I'm looking at Zips, I'm looking at Flax. I'm looking at all kinds of different, bottlings of these single picks that different groups or different stores did. And that's kind of what, really sets them apart, is that they have so many recipes, so many different picks. And it's something that a lot of bourbon lovers love about Four Roses. So Four Roses, definitely need to explore that a little bit more. Small batch select definitely needs to be on your list of looking for as a standard kind of spot in your bar. All right, let's jump to Brown-Forman. I think there's two bourbons in their lineup that I absolutely love that should always be in your bar, and we'll bring them both out at the same time. These are 1910 and 1920 from their Whiskey Row series. Old Forester has some great bourbons. Their rye at 100 proof for like $22 is fantastic. They do some good stuff. They do some store picks, some single barrel offerings, some barrel proof offerings. So they do some cool things. But as a standard shelf item, I really love the 1910 at 93 proof. This is, and these dates, if you don't know, they represent a certain period in either the history of Old Forester or in the history of bourbon or whiskey. And so if you go through their lineup, I think it starts with 1870, and this is the Whiskey Row lineup. 1870 is their first offering in the Whiskey Row. That represents the first year, 1870, that they produced their first bottle of bourbon. And then you go to 1897, which is their bottled in bond. So 1897 is when that bottled in bond government act passed, and distillers, they were one of a handful of distillers that started producing bottles that way so they could continue to have their product on the market. And it was kind of the safety kind of mechanism to make sure, at that time, there were a lot of people going around with who knows what, calling it bourbon or whiskey. And, it could have been, like I said, who knows what, and it was making people sick. So the Bottled in Bond Act was something to kind of ensure quality in the bourbon world. It had to be under a government warehouse, a bonded warehouse, had to be aged for at least 4 years, and it had to be proofed to exactly 100 proof. That's what makes a bourbon bottled in bond. So that's where it started in 1897. Then we jump to 1910. Well, this particular offering is because in 1910, they had a huge accident in one of their distilleries where a bottling line went down. They couldn't bottle. They had these barrels of whiskey. They didn't know what to do. They needed to do something with this whiskey, get it out of the barrel. I don't know why, but they ended up rebarreling it into another barrel. So it was kind of double barreled or, toasted. Not toasted, I don't know what you call it, double barreled, I'm drawing a blank here. I think you guys know what I'm talking about if you're into bourbon. So it was double oaked is what I would call it. Thank you, Rob. Good job, Rob. Thank you. You're welcome. So double oaked is what this is. In the barrel twice because of the accident that had happened at Old Forester. And that happened in 1910, and that's where this comes from. They proofed it down to 93, and I'm going to tell you the flavor. I mean, if you just see the color on this, it's because it's double oaked, right? It's got this dark, dark color. You get that influence of the oak with the caramel and the chocolate, a little bit of honey. I mean, it's just a beautiful pour, something that's delicious, should be on your bar all the time. Now, the last one in their 4 bottling series of Whiskey Row is 1920, and this is their Prohibition style whiskey. So 1920, when Prohibition hit, and it became, no more could you drink or make or sell any kind of alcohol. This was something that was being made in that style then. It's 115 proof, so now we're bumping up a little bit. Still has, all of these producers do something. When you heard me talk at the beginning about quality to price ratio, these are all quality bourbons. They are in balance. There's nothing that's out of balance that just overwhelms your palate. These are all delicious bourbons in their own kind of profile for their own reasons. Different, but very similar. So this Prohibition style, 115 proof, absolutely delicious. I think the average aging of this is, I want to say, between 6 and 8 years, when they blend those barrels. So it's got a little age on it, helps soften it down a little bit. The 115 proof to me doesn't drink hot. It's incorporated well. Just a beautiful bourbon. And by the way, cool bottle, right? Very cool bottle. Something that should probably be on your bar. Not probably. I'm telling you, we're doing the video, doing the podcast. This should be on your bar all the time. This is a great one to have for when guests come over. They want a little warm-up pour, something 93 proof with 1910. Then you take them on that journey up to 115 and try another style of bourbon from the same producer with that Prohibition 1920. Something fun to do with your guests. So both of these from Old Forester, Brown-Forman, on my list of top 12 bourbons. All right. Let's go to a producer that I don't think gets enough love. I think this is a legacy distillery that has great value, great quality in these bottles that they put out. And for whatever reason, they just don't get the love. We're talking about Jim Beam, and we're going to talk about a couple offerings from them. The first being Knob Creek. Now, this is a Knob Creek single barrel at 120 proof. These were, I think this was probably from 7 or 8 years ago that we did a pick for this particular offering here in Katy for a liquor store. Still haven't opened this one. But just the Knob Creek lineup in general should be in your bar, kind of wherever you want to live on that. For me, it's going to be the 100 proof 9-year. And I just finished a bottle a couple days ago. That's why I don't have it up here showing it to you. But the 100 proof 9-year for 32 to 35 bucks, can't beat it. A 9-year bourbon for, around $35 or less, kind of hard to beat that. I don't know where you would beat that. So that needs to be on your list. Then you jump up to these Knob Creek offerings that they have at single barrel proof or single barrels. They do them at 120. But what they've changed, this is kind of cool. What they've changed is they used to make all of their pick programs were also 120 proof. They've just started in the last few months or maybe a year. Whatever it comes out of the barrel at, single barrel proof is what it is. And I've been seeing picks from, in the 114s to the 118s to the, somewhere in that range, 112, which I think is really cool. That's a variation in, what each one's going to be based on that proof level. It's something that most distilleries do is they do single barrel proof, which, I think is a really cool thing. So they're going to start doing that. And Knob Creek also has they have a 12-year that's about 65 bucks. That is absolutely fantastic. I actually didn't have that pour until about 2 weeks ago. I was at a buddy's house, and my wife was asked to go in and pour us both something and blind and bring it out to us. We were sitting out back on the patio, and she brought that out, and I was like, man, this is delicious, but I don't know what it is. And it was the Knob Creek 12-year. I'd never had it. I've been looking for it. It's a standard shelf item, but it has been a little bit tougher to find. Everywhere I've gone, they said the distiller just hasn't refilled it recently. So I'm assuming it's just kind of a glitch. It's going to hit our market again and be back on the shelf. And when it is, I'm going to pick that up because it was a delicious bottle. For $65 to get a 12-year bourbon, outstanding. So Knob Creek definitely needs to be on your bar. Staying with Jim Beam, let's go to Old Faithful. I mean, this Old Granddad 114. This is, again, when you want something with a little bit more proof, just kind of warm you up, give you that nice Kentucky hug, this is a great one to go with. Old Granddad 114 has been a staple. It's passed from a couple different distilleries. I think it used to be National is where it started. You get some of the older offerings of this, and it's very coveted. A lot of people want this bourbon, the older ones. But the new offerings, the new distillate is still fantastic. And when you talk about this bottle at 114 proof, and again, I think the age doesn't have an age statement, but it's thought to be somewhere in that 6-7 year age. You're getting this in my market for about $22. Most places it's under 30. I mean, come on, a bourbon at 114 proof for under $30 from a legacy distiller that is 6 to 9 years old. Come on, hard to beat that. Old Granddad from Jim Beam definitely needs to be on your list. Now let's pull in one that I absolutely love. I only have a little bit left. You guys can see not a lot left in this bottle. This is Baker's 7. So this is has to be at least 7 years old, minimum, right? Can be more, and I'm going to talk about that. 107 proof, and this is a single barrel. So for those of us who like single barrels, you get that particular profile from one barrel. This is really cool. This is something that is very, very cool to find, but it's also freaking delicious, man. I mean, so good. But there is a caveat, and I'm going to share that with you. On these offerings, up at the neck, on the neck tag, it's going to give you some information about barrel, warehouse, location, all that kind of stuff. It's also going to tell you the age, and it gives you from year to month. This particular offering is 8 years, 7 months. Okay. You heard me say that all of these have to be a minimum of 7 years. I'm going to tell you my opinion. You do with it what you want. I don't buy these. I've bought enough of them that I figured out for whatever reason, 8 years is the mark. It makes me think about, the old something about Mary. It's not 5-minute abs, it's 7-minute abs. You can't get great abs in 5 minutes. You got to go 7 minutes for that, whatever it was. It was a little, you can't get 7 years on this and be great. You've got to go 8 years. That's kind of the mark. You get 8 years and above. I mean, it's as simple. It's crazy. 7 years, 11 months, not buying it. 8 years, 0 months, I'll buy it. I don't know why. But I've just had, when these first started coming out, they were the new bottlings. And by the way, cool bottle, right? I mean, very cool bottle. You think the stopper has a lot of weight. It's just kind of light and plastic, but it does look cool. But when these came out, it replaced the old offering that they had of the Baker 7. And they went to a single barrel versus, I believe those were a small batch. So very cool that they did that, but I tried enough of these to really figure out that 8 years is the mark for me. And I've talked to a lot of bourbon people, and most of us, I think all of them, are in agreement with me that 8 years, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the warehouse or what it is, 8 years is the mark. You would think Jim Beam would figure that out and go, well, maybe we need to make it, Baker's 8, not Baker's 7, but I'm giving you an opinion. There might be other people that go 8 years suck. If I don't find it in 7, that's all. I'm not buying it. So I'm sure there's those folks too, but still a great bourbon. Maybe you need to try both, see what you think. I will tell you the 7 year has always been great on the nose. It's really been on the palate where it kind of let me down. So let's go to my last distillery. And this is probably my all-time favorite distillery. So let's pull these bottles. Let's make a little way here. Yep, you see it. We got a little Wild Turkey coming into the frame. And I think this is my favorite distillery of all time. And I think they just have a lineup of bourbons, a portfolio of bourbons that are just fantastic. When you talk about, I mean, I could do more than these, but this is what I would say needs to be on your bar that are standard shelf items. You could add a couple extras, but I think this really covers you in a range that works really well. Wild Turkey, when you I'm going to start with the Russell's 10-year. This is a 10-year-old bourbon, right? This is 90 proof. So I always say that's a good proof to warm up the palate. When I have buddies come over, we're going to have a dinner, we're going to have a pour. It's our first pour of the night. I always start with something around that 90 to 100 proof, usually I look for a 90 proofer, and this is one that, is absolutely delicious. It's got this sweetness, this cherry, this softness to it. It's got this almost like confectionate sugar in there with that cherry that just it makes you smile when you take a sip. It's just a beautiful bourbon. 10 years old. It's got this roundness, this softness to it. So just a very well crafted bourbon. And by the way, in my market, I'm getting this for $35, $38, something like that. So 10-year bourbon for $35. You can't beat that. Then we go to Old Faithful, right? You can't talk about Wild Turkey if you're not talking about Wild Turkey 101. This is just a $20 bourbon that, again, has 6 to 9 year aged bourbon in the blend. Just a drinking bourbon, a nightly drinker. It has the proof that it's not too hot. It hits a proof point that you really enjoy. Got this great flavor on it. It works well in cocktails. It's something your buddies can just, have multiple sips of, or if you have people coming over that are, hey, I'll drink whatever you put in front of me kind of people. They're not really into it, but they know they like a little bourbon. They're not sure why they like it, but they'll drink it. You can pour them this. You don't feel bad at $20 a bottle. But for those who enjoy bourbon, that are into bourbon, you can still pour them this, and they're going to be like, hell yeah, 101. That's a banger, dude. Absolutely. So not going to disappoint anybody with Wild Turkey 101. And then we jump up to, my progression in this lineup that Wild Turkey would give me for my bar, and that was going to be the Rare Breed. This is 116.8 proof. This is chill filtered. They make a version that's released overseas or in the what do they call it in the airports, duty free, non-chill filtered version. I have a bottle of that. I like it better, but this is what we can get on the bar all the time. On the shelf all the time. Still an outstanding bourbon. 116.8 proof, hits with that, higher alcohol. You can feel it a little bit, but it's not overwhelming. Still same beautiful profile, delicious bourbon, well balanced, well put together. To me, Wild Turkey, and opinion, right? We all have them. Wild Turkey to me is the best distiller of bourbon when we talk about quality to price ratio. There is not only quality to price, but portfolio. I mean, I could go on and on about what's in their lineup, from their Kentucky Spirits to the rest of the Russells with their 10-year, their single barrel. They have a 6-year rye. They have a barrel strength rye. They have a single barrel of the Russell's Reserve. I mean, there's just so much in their portfolio that's at a great price that, to me, they're my favorite distiller. But those are my top 12 bottles of bourbon that are absolutely bangers, that are delicious, that won't break the bank, that should be on your shelf in your bar all the time. Hey, we all like to chase. We all like to go look for those hard to find bottles. Totally get it. I do the same thing. But when you can't find them, these are standard things that should be on your shelf, that you're still drinking great, delicious, fantastic bourbon all the time. And you're sharing. I don't care the level of bourbon connoisseur that comes to your house. If you have these 12 bottles, they're going to be happy. They're going to have multiple pours of different bottlings, and they're going to be very, very happy with your bourbon selection. All right, guys, that's it for today. I appreciate everybody listening to the episode, watching on YouTube if that's where you checked us out. Really appreciate it. And until our next episode of Bottles and Bites Without Borders, keep exploring the world, one bottle and one bite at a time.